to another man's mistake. That's what my daughter-in-law said at my 60th birthday party. Let me ask you something. What would you do if, in a room full of people who've known you your entire life, someone stood up, smiled, and tried to rewrite your past in one sentence? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The room had been warm just seconds before. Soft music playing, glasses clinking. My son Daniel had gone all out. Balloons, a catered dinner, even my favourite lemon cake. 60 years of life, celebrated in one evening. I remember thinking, this is what peace feels like. Then Rachel stood up, my daughter-in-law, 32, always polished, always composed. The kind of woman who chooses her words carefully, which is why what she said next didn't feel like a mistake. It felt deliberate. To another man's mistake, she repeated, lifting her glass slightly higher this time. The laughter died instantly. You could actually hear forks being set down. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced a small laugh. Well, that's one way to toast someone, I said, trying to keep things light. But Rachel didn't laugh. She just looked at me. Then, slowly, she reached into her purse and pulled something out. A folded document. She walked over, heels clicking against the hardwood, every step louder than it should have been, and placed it right in front of me. Maybe this will explain it better, she said. A DNA test. Right there, in front of my family, my friends, my son. I didn't pick it up right away. I looked at Daniel first. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And that's when something shifted inside me. Not embarrassment, not even anger. Something colder. I unfolded the paper. My hands were steady, but my heartbeat wasn't. Numbers, charts, percentages. I scanned the top line, then the next, then I kept reading. And the more I read, the more I realized. This wasn't just an insult. It was an accusation. And suddenly, my 60th birthday wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a trial. And I hadn't even been told the charge yet. I didn't say anything, and somehow that made everything worse. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel louder than shouting? Because in that moment, with every eye locked on me, my silence wasn't calm. It was unsettling. Rachel tilted her head slightly, watching me read, waiting. Daniel shifted in his seat. "Mum?" he said quietly, like he wasn't sure he even wanted an answer. I placed the paper down carefully. Not dramatically, not angrily, just deliberately. "Would you like to explain this?" I asked. Rachel smiled. Not warmly. No, this was the kind of smile people use when they think they've already won. "I think the results speak for themselves," she said. "But if you want me to say it, I will." The room tightened again. She turned slightly, making sure everyone could hear. "I had a DNA test done," she continued, "because there were inconsistencies, timelines that didn't quite add up. And according to this," she tapped the paper lightly, "Daniel is not biologically related to the man you claim is his father." A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I didn't react. But inside, my thoughts were moving fast, too fast, because something about what she said didn't match what I was seeing. Rachel had always been observant. I'd noticed that early on. The way she asked questions, not casually but strategically, about Daniel's childhood, about my late husband, Thomas, about dates, details most people wouldn't care about. At the time, I thought she was just trying to connect. Now? It felt like she'd been building a case. Daniel finally looked at me. His eyes weren't angry. They were worse. They were uncertain. "Mum, is there something you never told me?" he asked. That question landed heavier than anything Rachel had said. I exhaled slowly, then picked the paper up again. And that's when I saw it. Not clearly, but enough. The test wasn't comparing Daniel to Thomas. There was no mention of my husband anywhere. Instead, it referenced an alternative sample, a different subject, which meant one thing. This test wasn't proving what Rachel claimed it was. It couldn't. I looked up at her. Really looked this time. "You're very confident," I said quietly. "For someone who hasn't explained where this DNA came from." Rachel's smile didn't fade, but it tightened. "Does it matter?" she replied smoothly. I held her gaze. "Yes," I said. "It matters very much." I leaned forward slightly. "Whose DNA did you use?" And for the first time that night, Rachel didn't answer. Rachel's silence told me more than any answer could have. Let me ask you, if someone accuses you of something this serious, but refuses to explain their own evidence, what are they really hiding? The room didn't move. No one reached for their drinks. No one spoke. Rachel finally let out a soft breath, like she was deciding how much to reveal. "I got it from a reliable source," she said. That was it. No name, no explanation, just reliable source. As if that alone should be enough to dismantle my entire life. I almost smiled. Because now I understood something she didn't expect me to figure out this quickly. This wasn't about truth. This was about control. You see, over the past year, Rachel had been shifting things. Quietly, subtly. Comments here and there, suggesting Daniel and I were too dependent on each other. Questioning old family traditions, even bringing up inheritance in ways that felt oddly timed. At first, I brushed it off. Now, it all lined up. If she could create doubt, real, undeniable doubt about who Daniel was, then everything tied to me became unstable. Emotionally, legally, personally. And Daniel, he was already slipping. "I mean, the results are right there," he said, his voice uncertain. "Mum, it says there's a mismatch." "No," I interrupted, still calm. "It doesn't." That caught him off guard. I turned the paper toward him, pointing to a section he clearly hadn't read closely. "This isn't a direct paternity test," I said. "Look at the terminology. Look at the markers." Rachel's expression flickered, just for a second. "There's overlap here," I continued. "Shared genetic indicators, not absence, not exclusion." The whispers started again, quieter this time, more confused than judgmental. Rachel crossed her arms slightly. "You're twisting it," she said. "The conclusion is obvious." "Is it?" I asked. I stood up slowly now, holding the paper in my hand. "Because what I see is a comparison between Daniel and someone else entirely." I let that settle. Then I asked the question again, this time sharper. "Who did you test him against?" Rachel hesitated. And in that hesitation, everything began to crack. Because suddenly, her confidence didn't look like certainty anymore. It looked rehearsed. I glanced back at the report, scanning one specific section again, and then it hit me. Not fully, but enough to feel it forming. A memory, a name, something buried. I looked back at Rachel, my voice quieter now, but far more precise. "You didn't prove what you think you proved," I said. And this time, her smile disappeared. Her smile didn't just fade, it broke. And in that tiny shift, I knew, whatever Rachel thought she had, it wasn't as solid as she believed. "Go on," she said, but her voice had lost that polished edge. "Explain it to everyone." I nodded slowly, because now this wasn't about defending myself. It was about exposing the flaw. "DNA doesn't just tell you yes or no," I began, turning slightly so the room could hear me. "It shows how people are related. Parent, sibling, extended family. Each relationship leaves a different pattern." Daniel was watching me closely now. Not distant, not doubtful. Focused. I held up the paper. "This result shows a genetic connection," I continued. "But not the kind Rachel is claiming." Rachel shifted her weight. "That's not—" "It is," I cut in, still calm. "Because if this were proof Daniel wasn't Thomas's son, the report would say no relation. Clearly, directly." I tapped the page. "But it doesn't say that." The room was completely silent again. "You see this percentage?" I pointed. "This indicates shared DNA, but not at a parent-child level. It's lower, partial." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "What does that mean?" I looked at him. "It means the person used for comparison is related to you," I said, "just not as your father." Rachel's composure slipped another inch, and then it clicked. Not just a suspicion anymore, a certainty. A name I hadn't spoken out loud in years. I exhaled slowly. "Thomas had a brother," I said. A few confused murmurs. "Edward." Even saying his name felt strange, like opening a door that had been shut for decades. "We didn't talk about him much," I added. "He and Thomas were estranged. But biologically?" I looked back at the paper. "They shared a significant amount of DNA." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. And then I turned back to Rachel. This time, there was no hesitation. "Did you use Edward's DNA?" I asked. Rachel didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because her silence, this time, wasn't controlled. It was exposed. A ripple moved through the room. Shock. Realization. The kind that spreads fast and hits hard. "You thought this proved something else," I said quietly. "But all it proves is that you didn't understand what you were looking at." Rachel's jaw tightened. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. I was looking at Daniel. Because now the truth was out. But the damage? That was something else entirely. And as I met his eyes, I saw it. Not confusion anymore. Not doubt. Something heavier. And I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The truth didn't explode. It settled. Heavy. Unavoidable. Final. I placed the DNA report flat on the table and looked around the room, at the same faces that just minutes ago had been watching me like I was a stranger in my own life. "Let me make this simple," I said. No raised voice, no anger, just clarity. "This test does not prove Daniel isn't my husband's son. It never did." I pointed to the report again. Rachel compared Daniel's DNA to Edward, Thomas's brother. Of course there's overlap. They're related. That's how genetics works. A few people nodded now, quietly, understanding. The percentages, the markers, everything here supports a familial connection, not a contradiction, not an affair, not a lie. I let that sink in. This was either a misunderstanding, I added, glancing briefly at Rachel, or a deliberate misrepresentation. Rachel opened her mouth, but nothing came out this time, because there was nothing left to twist. Daniel stood up slowly. "Is that true?" he asked, looking at Rachel now, not me. She hesitated, just for a second. But that second was enough. I thought," she started. "You thought?" Daniel cut in, his voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "You did all this, here, based on what you thought?" No one moved. No one defended her. The room had already chosen its side. One by one, guests began to gather their things. Quiet exits, avoided eye contact. What was supposed to be a celebration had turned into something else entirely, and no one wanted to stay in it any longer. That night didn't end with cake. It ended with distance. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted. Daniel came to see me, alone. No Rachel. He didn't try to explain it away, didn't make excuses. "I should have come to you first," he said. I studied him for a long moment before answering. "Yes," I said simply, and that was enough. Not forgiveness, not yet, but honesty. As for Rachel, the consequences found her quickly. Daniel moved out within a month, said he needed space, from her decisions, from the manipulation, from the damage she caused, not just to me, but to him. Trust, once fractured like that, doesn't snap back. It reshapes everything. I made changes too. Quiet ones, legal ones. Not out of anger, but clarity. Because when someone shows you how easily they can rewrite your life, you learn to protect what's left of it. A few months later, Daniel sat across from me at the same kitchen table where he grew up. No tension this time. Just two people, rebuilding something real. "I'm sorry," he said again. This time, I nodded. And I meant it. At 60, I thought I understood what family was. That night proved something different. Not everyone who stands beside you is on your side. But the truth? The truth has a way of holding its ground. And in the end, so did I.